welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to dig into a text that's almost 300 years old to tackle a problem that feels incredibly modern. In a world just full of intense emotions, how do you even begin to know what's real?
I mean, think about it. We're surrounded by these huge displays of feeling, right? You see it everywhere, political rallies, social media, you name it. And it really makes you wonder, how can you tell if a powerful emotion, whether it's in you or someone else, is actually the real deal?
And believe it or not, this is not a new problem. Not at all. We got to go back to the 1740s. There was this period of huge social and religious upheaval in the American colonies, known as the Great Awakening. And this thinker, Jonathan Edwards, he looked around at all this emotional chaos and thought, okay, we need a way to make sense of this. So what he did was create something like a field guide for genuine experiences. And his goal, it wasn't to stamp out emotion or anything like that. No, he just wanted to figure out how to separate the authentic stuff from all the counterfeits. And his first step? Well, it was to call out the imposters. All those signs we think are reliable, but they're really not. Okay, let's dive in. All right, myth number one. This is a big one that I think we all fall for pretty much all the time. The idea that the more intense an emotion is, the more real it has to be. You know, if it's loud, it's got to be true, right? Yeah, our gut instinct just screams that a powerful feeling has to be a profound one. But here's Edward's big insight. The sheer volume of a feeling, it tells you absolutely nothing about its quality or its source. I mean, a raging forest fire is incredibly intense, but so is the quiet warmth of the sun. One destroys everything in its path, the other, it gives life. And to prove his point, Edwards pulls out this just incredible example from history. He says, look at the crowds when Jesus enters Jerusalem. One minute, they are completely overcome with joy and praise, shouting Hosanna in this, frenzy of passion. But then, just a few days later, that exact same crowd is using that exact same level of intensity to scream, crucify him. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that intensity by itself is neutral. It doesn't prove anything. Hitting an emotional peak can feel amazing, sure, but it is absolutely no guarantee of real, lasting change. Edwards realized that sometimes the biggest emotional waves are also the shallowest. Okay, so that leads us right into the second myth, which really builds on this first one. If pure intensity isn't proof, well, what about performance? You know, the big outward show of emotion, the stuff everyone can see and hear. We're kind of wired to believe what we see. So when someone is talking with just incredible passion, or they're crying, or even physically trembling from a feeling, our default setting is just to assume, wow, that has to be sincere. Now, Edwards totally gets the old wisdom that, yeah, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. But, and this is a huge but, he adds a crucial warning. The heart can be full of all kinds of stuff, including fake emotions that are just desperate for an audience. He basically saw that the most inauthentic religion was often the one putting on the biggest, loudest show. And he uses this amazing quote from Proverbs to nail the point. Someone who boasts about a gift they don't really have, they're like clouds and wind without rain. Think about that. It's this big, dramatic storm that looks like it's going to give you this huge downpour, but in the end, not a single drop of life-giving water. It's all show, no substance. So Edwards flags a whole bunch of these as totally unreliable performances. Things like being super fluent and passionate in your religious talk, or having these strong physical reactions, trembling, fainting, crying. Even just being really zealous about spending tons of time on external duties. None of it, he says, on its own, proves that anything real is going on underneath. And that brings us to our third and final myth. And this one might be the most counterintuitive of them all, because it really challenges something we tend to admire: absolute certainty. Let's be honest. We admire people with unwavering confidence, don't we? We just assume that if someone has literally zero doubts about what they believe, well, they must have the strongest, most authentic faith out there. But Edwards, he draws this incredibly sharp line in the sand. He says, look, true assurance is actually humble. It's something that gets tested by doubt, and it's kept alive by actually living a good life. But false confidence? Oh, that's a different beast entirely. It's arrogant, it's loud, it loves to pat itself on the back, and it's completely unfazed by its own bad behavior. In fact, and this is maybe his most startling observation, Edwards said that the most unshakably confident people he ever met were often the most deeply deluded. Their certainty wasn't a sign of truth at all. It was a symptom of just how good they were at fooling themselves. Okay, so after just completely tearing down these three big pillars of how we judge emotion, intensity, performance, and confidence, we're left with a huge question, right? If none of that stuff works, then what does? What's a real sign? So let's just quickly recap Edwards' list of unreliable signs, the things not to trust. Number 1, the sheer intensity of an emotion, not proof. Number 2, the outward performance of it, the talk, the tears, not proof. And number 3, the absolute unshakable confidence behind it, also not proof. These are all, at the end of the day, really bad guides. So here it is. Here's the big answer. For Edwards, the only reliable sign, the only thing that truly mattered, was the long-term change it produced in a person's life. The real test is not how an emotion feels in the moment. It's about what it does over the long haul. Does it actually produce lasting positive change in someone's character, in their actions? For him, that was the only question worth asking. And that brings us right back to today. This insight from way back in the 1700s leaves us with a really powerful question for our own time. In our world of viral outrage and performative everything from politics to social media, with all these super confident influencers, what are we getting wrong? What are we misjudging in others, and maybe even in ourselves? Edwards' work is this incredible reminder that in a world that is so loud, maybe the most authentic things are also the quietest.